On May 30th this year, at a conference called the Equipment Powerhouse Forum, a chief scientist at the world's largest battery maker stood up and said something the entire EV industry had been waiting years to hear. Wu Kai, chief scientist at CATL and an academician of the Chinese Academy of Engineering, confirmed that the manufacturing bottlenecks are gone. Not fixed in a lab, not solved on a whiteboard. Gone on real production lines, ready to ship in real cars. The battery in question doesn't contain a single gram of lithium. It doesn't need cobalt. It doesn't need nickel. The core ingredient, sodium, comes from something sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now, ordinary salt. And this isn't a 5-year roadmap or a hopeful press release. 3 months before that announcement, Changan Automobile had already put a car powered by this exact battery into actual dealerships, making it, by most industry accounts, the first mass-produced passenger electric vehicle in the world running on sodium instead of lithium. The lithium-ion battery has ruled the entire electric vehicle industry, unchallenged, for more than a decade. That rain just cracked, and it cracked faster than almost anyone in the industry expected. To understand why this moment matters so much, you first need to understand exactly what's wrong with the battery sitting in your phone, your laptop, and very likely the car in your driveway right now. Lithium works, and it works well, which is exactly why it became the default choice for rechargeable batteries decades ago. But lithium has a geography problem that has nothing to do with chemistry and everything to do with geology. Lithium makes up roughly 17 thousandths of 1% of the Earth's crust, an incredibly scarce element concentrated in just a handful of places on the planet, primarily Australia, Chile, and China, which together control the overwhelming majority of the world's usable lithium supply. That concentration creates real vulnerability. Lithium carbonate prices have swung wildly over the past several years, at times ranging anywhere from around $6,000 a ton to over $80,000 a ton, based on nothing more than shifting mining output, speculative trading, and geopolitical tension between the handful of countries that actually control the resource. Every automaker on Earth building electric vehicles has been quietly hostage to that volatility, and every government trying to build a domestic EV industry has had to reckon with the uncomfortable fact that they likely don't have enough lithium sitting under their own soil to do it independently. It's worth sitting with just how strange that dependency actually is, given how central lithium-ion batteries have become to modern life. Every smartphone, every laptop, every electric vehicle, and increasingly every home battery system and grid-scale storage installation on the planet relies on a supply chain that funnels through a remarkably small number of mines, refineries, and processing facilities. When lithium prices spiked dramatically a few years back, it wasn't because the world suddenly ran out of lithium in any physical sense. The element itself is still relatively common compared to, say, gold or platinum. It was because the infrastructure needed to mine it, refine it into battery-grade material, and ship it to factories simply couldn't expand fast enough to keep pace with exploding global demand. And that bottleneck sat almost entirely in the hands of a few companies operating in a few countries. Automakers, electronics manufacturers, and entire national energy strategies found themselves at the mercy of decisions made in boardrooms and government ministries thousands of miles away, with essentially no way to route around the problem, because there simply wasn't an alternative chemistry mature enough to switch to. That's the exact vulnerability sodium-ion batteries are finally positioned to address, not by being a better battery in every single way, but by offering the first genuinely credible escape hatch from a decades-long single chemistry monopoly. Sodium doesn't have that problem because sodium barely has a supply chain problem at all. It's the 6th most abundant element in the Earth's crust, roughly 1,000 times more common than lithium, and it's not confined to a handful of geologically blessed countries. It's in seawater. It's in salt lakes. It's an ordinary rock salt mined in dozens of countries across every continent. Sodium carbonate, the raw material used to build these batteries, typically costs somewhere between $100 and $500 per ton, compared to lithium carbonate's price tag that can run anywhere from $6,000 a ton on a good day to well over $80,000 a ton during a supply crunch. That gap alone is the entire strategic argument for sodium-ion batteries in a single sentence. You're trading a rare, geopolitically concentrated, price-volatile material for one that's essentially everywhere, stable in price, and impossible for any single country or cartel to meaningfully corner. The way a sodium-ion battery actually works is almost identical to a lithium-ion battery at the level of basic physics, which is part of why this technology was able to move from lab curiosity to production line so quickly once the engineering caught up. Both chemistries rely on what scientists call a rocking chair mechanism, where charged ions shuttle back and forth between two electrodes through a liquid electrolyte, moving one direction during charging and the opposite direction during use. Swap out the lithium ion for a sodium ion, sitting just one position to the left on the periodic table, and the same fundamental intercalation chemistry still works. But that small substitution unlocks a cascade of practical advantages further down the design. Because sodium doesn't react with aluminum the way lithium does, sodium-ion batteries can use cheap aluminum current collectors on both electrodes instead of the expensive copper that lithium-ion cells require on one side. A change that alone shaves meaningful cost out of every single cell. It also means these batteries can safely ship and be transported at 0 volts, fully discharged, something lithium-ion batteries generally cannot do without risking permanent damage, a genuinely underrated logistics and safety advantage that rarely makes headlines, but matters enormously at industrial scale. That periodic table detail is worth pausing on for a second, because it's genuinely one of the more elegant parts of this whole story. Sodium sits directly below lithium in the same column of the periodic table, meaning the two elements share a lot of the same basic chemical behavior. Both are highly reactive metals eager to give up a single electron, which is exactly the property that makes an element useful as a battery's charge carrier in the first place. That family resemblance is precisely why researchers were able to essentially port over decades of hard-won lithium-ion engineering knowledge, cell architecture, manufacturing techniques, safety protocols, rather than starting from a completely blank page. It's also why sodium-ion cells look and behave, from a factory floor perspective, remarkably similar to the lithium-ion production lines that already exist, meaning battery manufacturers didn't need to invent an entirely new kind of factory to build them. They mostly needed to adapt the factories they already had. That single fact has quietly made this transition dramatically faster and cheaper than it otherwise would have been, since so much of the expensive infrastructure, from electrode coating machines to cell stacking robots, translates directly from one chemistry to the other, with only modest retooling. So if the underlying chemistry has been understood for years, why did it take until 2026 for anyone to actually mass produce this at scale? Because knowing a chemistry works in a lab, Beaker is a completely different challenge from making millions of identical, reliable cells roll off a factory floor every single day without defects. According to Wu Kai's own account, Cattail's engineers had to individually solve more than 100 separate engineering obstacles just to get here. Some of the toughest included controlling moisture during manufacturing, since the materials involved are far more sensitive to humidity than traditional lithium-ion components. Managing gas generation from the hard carbon anode material, a byproduct of the manufacturing process that can ruin cell consistency if left unchecked. Solving persistent bonding issues between the aluminum foil and the electrode coatings sitting on top of it. And figuring out how to mass produce something called a self-generating anode reliably and consistently across an enormous production run, rather than just a handful of hand-built prototype cells. None of these problems are exotic scientific mysteries. They are the unglamorous, grinding manufacturing engineering that separates a battery that works once in a research lab from a battery that can be built by the millions without a single defective cell slipping through, and solving all of them simultaneously at scale is genuinely the hard part of turning any battery chemistry into a real product. CATL didn't get here overnight either. The company has poured nearly 10 billion yuan, close to $1.5 billion US dollars, into sodium-ion research and development over the years leading up to this announcement, and the commercial proof points are already stacking up fast. Back in February, CATL and Chang'an jointly unveiled the Chang'an Nevo A06, widely reported as the world's first mass-produced passenger electric vehicle, running on CATL's sodium-ion technology, branded under the name Naxtra, with the car reaching actual dealerships that same month. A separate joint effort between JD, Com, the Chinese e-commerce giant, automaker GAC Group, and CATL is bringing a sodium-ion variant of a vehicle called the Ion UT Super into production this year as well. CATL has also signed what's being described as the largest single supply contract for sodium-ion cells to date, a 60 gigawatt-hour order, and the company's stated roadmap extends well beyond passenger cars, into commercial vehicles, battery swapping networks where drivers exchange a depleted battery for a charged one in minutes rather than waiting to plug in, and large-scale stationary energy storage for the power grid. CATL isn't racing alone either, which is a genuinely important signal, because a single company betting on a new chemistry could just be a marketing story. But an entire industry racing toward the same destination usually means the underlying economics are real. BYD has built a 30 gigawatt-hour dedicated sodium-ion facility in Chuzhou, producing cells aimed at compact, budget-friendly electric vehicles, priced around $10,000. The company is projecting sodium-ion chemistry will supply somewhere between 15 and 20% of its total battery demand by 2027. Chinese automakers including Chery, JC, and JMEV have already launched their own sodium-ion powered vehicles, generally priced around that same $10,000 mark, with real-world ranges in the 250 to 300 kilometer range, aimed squarely at the world's largest and most price-sensitive segment of the EV market, affordable urban mobility for the masses rather than long-range luxury sedans. And here's where the actual performance advantages of this chemistry go from interesting to genuinely useful in the real world. Sodium-ion cells handle cold weather dramatically better than most lithium-ion chemistries. CATL's own data shows its sodium cells retaining around 90% of their nominal capacity, even at negative 40 degrees Celsius, a temperature that would badly cripple most conventional lithium iron phosphate batteries, which typically struggle to hold much more than 70% capacity at a far milder negative 20 degrees. That's not a trivial footnote for anyone living somewhere with genuinely brutal winters. It's the difference between an EV that reliably starts and drives on a frozen January morning and one that doesn't. Sodium-ion cells also tend to tolerate far higher temperatures before hitting thermal runaway, the dangerous chain reaction responsible for lithium-ion battery fires, with some reported thresholds running 30 to 50 degrees Celsius higher than comparable lithium chemistries, translating into a meaningfully safer battery with simpler, lighter thermal management systems built around it. And on longevity, sodium-ion cells are increasingly demonstrating cycle life figures upward of 10,000 charge cycles in some configurations, compared to roughly 3,500 to 6,000 cycles typical of lithium iron phosphate cells, meaning these batteries can potentially outlast the vehicles they are installed in. These aren't abstract laboratory numbers either. They translate directly into specific practical use cases that automakers and grid operators are already targeting. A delivery fleet operating in a northern climate, where a lithium-based van might lose a meaningful chunk of its usable range every winter morning simply because the battery is cold, gains real, measurable operational reliability from a sodium-ion pack that barely notices the temperature drop. A battery swapping station, where packs get pulled in and out of vehicles dozens of times a day and need to survive an enormous number of charge cycles over their working life, benefits enormously from a chemistry that can handle 10,000 cycles instead of a few thousand. And a stationary grid storage installation, sitting outdoors through blistering summers and freezing winters alike, gains real safety margin from a chemistry that simply doesn't ignite as easily under thermal stress. None of these use cases require squeezing every last watt hour into the smallest possible package, which is exactly why sodium-ion's lower energy density matters so much less in these specific applications than it would in, say, a smartphone or a long-range luxury sedan trying to maximize range from a fixed amount of onboard space. Now, it's important to be honest about exactly where this technology still falls short, because the real story here is genuinely exciting without needing to oversell it. Energy density remains sodium-ion's clearest disadvantage. Today's commercial sodium-ion cells generally land somewhere between 100 and 175 watt-hours per kilogram, meaningfully below what advanced lithium-ion chemistries can achieve, which is exactly why you're seeing this technology show up first in compact urban EVs, delivery vans, and stationary storage, rather than long-range premium vehicles, drones, or smartphones, where every gram and every cubic centimeter genuinely matters. Cost is a more complicated picture than the simple "sodium is cheaper" pitch suggests too. As of 2026, sodium-ion cells are generally priced somewhere in the range of $46 to $70 per kilowatt hour, which puts them roughly in the same ballpark as, and in some analyses still slightly above, budget lithium iron phosphate cells, which typically run around $50 to $55 per kilowatt hour. Benchmark Mineral Intelligence has gone as far as saying sodium-ion's cost advantage over LFP has essentially evaporated for now, largely because sodium-ion production still hasn't reached the same massive manufacturing scale that decades of lithium-ion investment has achieved, and that scale gap alone is currently adding a real cost premium on top of otherwise cheaper raw materials. Where analysts genuinely disagree is exactly when and how completely that cost equation flips in sodium's favor. More optimistic forecasts from groups like the International Renewable Energy Agency project sodium-ion cell costs could fall to around $40 per kilowatt hour by 2030, as global production capacity scales from roughly 70 gigawatt hours today up toward 400 gigawatt hours annually, a trajectory that would put sodium meaningfully below lithium iron phosphate on pure cost. Wood Mackenzie's outlook is considerably more conservative, projecting that sodium-ion won't actually reach cost parity with LFP until sometime around 2035. Specifically because lithium-ion's own costs keep falling too, creating something close to a moving target that sodium-ion has to keep chasing rather than simply overtaking. Benchmark Mineral Intelligence's own longer-term projection is notably sober as well, suggesting sodium-ion might realistically capture somewhere around 15% of the overall battery market within a decade, a genuinely significant foothold, but nowhere close to dethroning lithium-ion as the industry's dominant chemistry. There's also a sharper irony sitting underneath the entire freedom from geopolitical dependence narrative that gets used to sell sodium-ion batteries, and it's worth being upfront about it. Sodium itself might be available everywhere on the planet, in seawater and salt flats and ordinary mined rock salt, but the actual manufacturing capability to turn that raw sodium into a finished battery cell is right now concentrated almost entirely in one country. the International Energy Agency projects China will control somewhere close to 95% of global sodium-ion battery production capacity by 2030, spanning not just finished cells, but the cathode materials, the anode materials, and essentially the entire specialized supply chain underneath them. That means a country trying to switch to sodium-ion specifically to escape dependence on lithium supply chains dominated by Australia, Chile, and China could easily end up just as dependent on Chinese manufacturing as before, just for a different chemistry. Sodium. The raw element is free and abundant everywhere. Sodium, the finished manufactured battery cell, at least for the foreseeable future, still largely runs through the same country that already dominates the lithium-ion supply chain today. Outside of China, a smaller but genuinely serious group of companies is trying to build an alternative sodium-ion manufacturing base elsewhere. Natron Energy, based in the United States, has focused specifically on Prussian blue cathode chemistry aimed at high-power applications and data center backup power, an increasingly valuable niche given how much backup power modern AI data centers now require. Faradion, working under India's Reliance conglomerate, is industrializing layered oxide sodium-ion technology specifically for the Indian market. And Peak Energy, a California and Colorado-based startup, recently signed a contract to supply up to 4.75 gigawatt hours of sodium-ion batteries to the storage developer Jupiter Power, with the first tranche alone representing the largest single sodium-ion deployment announced anywhere outside China to date. Peak's own leadership has argued publicly that sodium-ion chemistry is ready for real deployment today, not just as a future promise, and interestingly, there's a quiet historical irony behind all of this. Both the modern lithium-ion battery and the sodium-ion battery were originally invented in the United States. Lithium-ion by Exxon back in the 1970s, and early sodium-ion work by Ford decades later. Both technologies were essentially handed off, through decades of underinvestment, to Chinese manufacturers who scaled them into dominant global industries. Whether Natron, Faradion, and Peak Energy can meaningfully change that pattern for sodium specifically, rather than simply repeating it, remains one of the more interesting open questions in this entire story. So where does that leave the actual honest verdict on what just happened? Sodium-ion batteries did not just kill lithium-ion, and nobody serious in the industry is claiming they did. What actually happened is narrower, and in some ways more useful than a dramatic replacement story. A genuinely new battery chemistry, built from cheap, abundant, geopolitically boring materials, has crossed the incredibly difficult threshold from laboratory curiosity into real, verified mass production, with actual cars already sitting in actual dealerships running on it. It's not going into your next smartphone or a long-range luxury sedan anytime soon. It's lower energy density rules, that out for now. But for budget urban EVs, delivery fleets, battery swapping networks, cold climate vehicles, and grid-scale energy storage, sodium-ion has already stopped being a research paper and started being a purchase order. And that transition, quiet and unglamorous as it looks from the outside, is exactly how every major shift in battery technology has actually happened. It's worth remembering that lithium-ion batteries themselves didn't take over the world overnight either. They spent years confined to expensive niche electronics before manufacturing scale, falling costs, and steadily improving performance turned them into the default choice for nearly every portable device and eventually every electric vehicle on the planet. Sodium-ion is standing roughly where lithium-ion once stood decades ago, proven, working, rolling off real production lines, but still climbing the long, unglamorous curve of manufacturing scale and cost reduction that ultimately decides whether a battery chemistry becomes a footnote or a foundation. The difference this time is that the starting materials are cheaper, more abundant, and more evenly distributed around the planet than lithium ever was, which gives sodium-ion a genuinely different long-term trajectory to climb, even if nobody can say with total certainty yet just how far up that curve it will eventually go. If this story surprised you, follow along for what happens as sodium-ion production scales from tens of gigawatt hours today toward the hundreds of gigawatt hours the industry is now openly planning for.